So, John, how are you and the family being, mate?
Yeah, we're all good, thank you. It's busy times and plenty to do, but no, we're very good indeed. And one of my grandkids has started to get into rugby now and going
Oh,
along
yeah.
to rugby games. So he's 5 years of age. So yeah, it's there's exciting times ahead, family
Yeah.
times ahead.
Good, good. They're a bit harder to catch than when you were playing the little 5-year-old, mate, aren't they?
They are, yes, they are, yeah, yeah.
Do you know what, mate? Guarantee you'll hold the tackle shield in a year or two, won't you? You'll
No, I
definitely
won't.
get
No,
roped in.
no, I
You
can do
will.
it. Somebody else can do that for him.
Yeah,
I'll just,
hopefully.
yes, hopefully, yes, I'm sure.
Right, mate, I'll go right back to the start with your rugby story, John. So where was home for you and who lived at home with you?
Well, I was born 41 Wheldon Road, so
Right,
you could step outside our front door and, with the wind behind you, kick a ball into Castleford Rugby League ground. So
right.
I think it was pretty inevitable that I was going to be involved in rugby league in some way or other. And I had my brother there, who was 8 years older than me,
Yeah,
and my mum and dad. My dad, he was a coalman, so which you bound to have something to do with the mining industry from
yeah.
Castleford. And my mum was a stay-at-home mum, as was the case then. But as I say, my brother and I were just rugby league nuts, and my brother was a scoreboard operator, and I started helping him at 5 years of age. So I've been involved. I've been to lots and lots and lots of rugby league games, and I've watched Cas train lots and lots of time, which
Yeah.
which was part of growing up. You know, when you live down Wheldon Road, you were dominated by Castleford Rugby League Football Club.
Mm. And did they used to let you in at like half time in the early games, John, for nothing and stuff? I know I lived by Norton Park, so when
Yeah.
it was Norton Park, the early used to open the gates at half time, and those
Yes.
stinge bags would run in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we'd go watch training as well.
Yeah,
Go down Tuesday and Thursday, and consequently, you got to know a lot. I mean, when I was a kid, it was the era of the H bombs, Alan Hardesty and Keith Hepworth at Cass, and you got to know them, and obviously you felt privileged to know them, being just an ordinary lad and knowing these what were to us superstars at the time, and it's great that we've maintained friendship with Alan Hardesty's still alive, but poor old Epi passed away recently, so there's you just became friends with people by going down and being a pest. I think watching them train and so on and so forth.
yeah. Do you think? Sorry, mate. This is slightly off, but do you think maybe because of a professional game now, we've lost that relatability a little bit, John?
No, I don't really, John. Tell you the truth,
No,
I think professional rugby league lads are some of the most approachable people you can get,
I
and and
agree, mate.
and
Definitely, yeah,
the very humble people as well. So
yeah.
no, I don't. I think it's a working class game, and the good solid working class lads generally who play it.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. So where was rugby first played for you, and how was you introduced to that club?
It's. I mean, I'm so old that it wasn't club based then. It was more school based.
Was it?
Yeah, so I mean, I went to Wheldon Road Junior Infant School, and the junior school had a rugby team, and I was fortunate to play for the junior school rugby team at 7 years of age, and it
Right.
was it was a gentleman called Mr Harris and Mr Turner. They ran it, and you had, even at junior school then, you'd end up playing 13, 14 fixtures, over the sort of Christmas, either side of Christmas. So it was very, very well established, was rugby league in schools in Castleford. And that's basically how I got playing rugby, and how I love playing rugby. So, the environment was, I was born down Wheldon Road. I went to watch Castleford train and play. I did the scoreboard, and I played junior school rugby league, and it was just inevitable that you were going to play rugby league, I think.
Yeah. And was there a rep team, mate, at the back end of junior school?
Yeah, there
Yeah,
was a town team, a cast town
town
team.
team.
Yeah, it was a pretty strong one as well, because
Yeah,
as I say, there was Ashton Road that played. There was Townville Junior. So there was Airedale Junior School. There were lots of junior schools who played each other. So to get in that town team, it was tough, but it was a good standard as well.
Yeah. Do you remember the logistics, mate? So would they have watched you play for school, or would you have gone for trials?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, you know, the town team was run by teachers as well. So obviously teachers spoke to each other, and you played at other schools, and so you were just picked up like that. But it was really well organised, and it's something I feel that perhaps we should revisit if possible, because I think everybody goes to school, so you've got there a big reservoir of talent waiting to be got. Whereas if everything's based at amateur club, which is what community clubs, which is what tends to happen, you've got to actually make the effort to go there. Whereas everybody goes to school, so that there's like an untapped market for me.
Yeah, and the thing that I believe in as well, mate, you can't win all the time, can you? So
No.
you need to understand that from an early age as well. Just because
Yes.
you've not selected doesn't mean you're not necessarily good enough. Just not worked at that time for you.
Exactly right. And I just think that I think being involved in team sports, it's a gift. It really is, because it teaches you discipline. It teaches you to accept setbacks and accept disappointment, as well as enjoy and be elated at success and victories. And I think that's something that would be great for. I mean, I sound a bit like an old codger now, don't it? It'd be great for young people now to have that. And I know that, you know, one of my granddaughters, she plays football, and she gets so much out of being in a team environment. And I think it's something that should be encouraged. Get them off the screens and get them onto the playing fields. It do society the world of good.
Thing is, mate, as well, is when you're a kid, you don't understand that you're learning them things
Yeah.
until it's transferable in the workplace. So if you don't hit that pro level, which 99% of kids won't, and that's fine, isn't it?
Yep.
Eventually, it'll filter through into semi-pro or amateur game and your workplace. Everything's transferable, isn't it?
Of course, bang on, John, bang on, and it makes you a better person. You know, I really believe that that mateship that develops. You know, you become mates with that's why it's teammates, and that's a close bond, and that your group again, another group. I think that competitive element as well. All of which they're all lessons that we learn, and they all can be applied to sort of life skills.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So town team rugby, who would you have played neighbour-wise, and did you play many rep games at town team level?
No, I mean, it was the main one was just being school based, but there were,
Yeah.
I think there were 3 town team fixtures per season. So where you'd play as perhaps the Leeds town or Wakefield or something like that, because Featherstone were within the Castleford one. So it was just a great setup. That you know, it's a shame that it's gone now, but it has, because
I agree.
school sports has declined rapidly.
Yeah. So did all your teammates and schoolmates, did you transition into a high school together, or did you scatter?
Well, I mean, I went to school, again, it shows how old I am, when it was the 11 plus. So
Right.
I was one of, we had a class of 31 down Wheldon Road, and there was 3 of us who passed the 11 plus. So at that point, I went to Cas Grammar School, while others went to Cas Secondary Modern. So that split you up a little from your mates. And Cas Grammar School, they played rugby union. So that was a little strange as well. So, you know, I ended up playing rugby union throughout that part of it. And it was only when we went to under 17 and under 19 level that you returned to play rugby league at Cas.
Right. So, you know, even at that age, John, how did you find the differences in both courts? Because there are little intricacies, mate, as you grow older, aren't there?
Well, we were a really successful team. Gary Everett actually played in the same team as well. He was a year above me, so you know, we were a very successful team, and we basically played rugby league, but there were 15 of us instead of 30.
No, that's how it tends to be, isn't it?
Yeah, and other schools who were more traditional rugby union schools, they just couldn't understand why we didn't kick the ball, and so we just ran with the ball, passed it, and backed his mates up. And when they had the ball, we tackled them, and it was as simple as that. And so we were rugby league lads playing rugby union, but it was great fun.
Yeah. And what about the club? The club game at that point, would it have still just been school rugby in that grammar school?
It was school rugby, and then it was only you got to under 17 level, and then you went down and played for. Well, I went to Leeds and played about half a dozen games with Leeds under 17s, but I just didn't like that. So that's when I returned to Castleford. It was Graham Eptinstall who was the coach then, the under 17 coach down at Cas, and he was a big influence on me playing there. Before it transitioned into under 19, and but even then, my daddy was a pretty highly disciplined dad, and he told me I had to finish my education, and I was fortunate enough to go to Leicester College of Education, so I did a PE teaching degree there, and it was whilst I was there that I actually signed for Cas. But I signed for Cas, and I still used to play for the college, which perhaps I shouldn't have done at rugby union. And then when I went home, in the holidays, I played for what was the old A team then down at Cas, and that's basically how I did that transition years until I could play, part-time rugby with Cas when I got a job.
Yeah. So student-wise, mate, how did you find school? Was it social to you, or did you treat it as a backup to the rugby?
No, I mean, you see, it was part-time. Your Alan Hardisons and company, they were part-time players. I mean, I remember Alan Hardison worked at Hickson's. So, you did your career. And as I say, my dad, I wanted to be a teacher, and my dad fully supported me to do that. So that was my prime aim and my prime goal. And then when I managed to qualify as a teacher and assigned with Cas, it was lovely to combine the two as well, where you taught, but then you trained on the Tuesday, Thursday, and played on the Friday or Sunday or whenever.
Thinking back, mate, if you can, do you remember the first time you might have clicked on that you had coaching tendencies? Because a teacher and coach are very much the same thing,
Bang
just a
on.
slightly different environment, aren't they?
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I love teaching. I'm not one of these old slaves teachers. I think teachers have got a great role to play in society, and I love teaching. And it just seemed natural that if you love teaching, what you're doing when you teach, you're trying to make youngsters better. Well, what you're doing when you're coaching, you're trying to make players better, and not only better players, but better people. So I just thought the two just dovetailed absolutely completely together.
Yeah. And did you have that? Did you have that insight in look at the game similar to that whilst you were still playing, John?
Yeah,
So
yes, I
if
did.
you'd have seen someone playing a similar position and something was slightly off, would you have encouraged a change in that intricacy about?
Well, I can actually remember one of the times when I got absolutely fascinated with tactics. It was when I was very young. I was still at school, and I don't know if you can remember the BBC Two Floodlit Trophy used to be on.
So I've heard of it, mate.
Yeah, and Cas had a good team. They won the first three, I think, of them, and they had a player playing called Dougie Walton, and that time was 4 tackles. It wasn't 6 tackles; it was 4. But what you could do is you ran through the tackle count. If you kicked it dead, they'd to drop out to you again.
Okay.
And Dougie Walton had cottoned on to this, or the coach, George Clinton at the time down at Cas. And they'd play through the set. Then as it got to that, he had a massive bow to it, and he just used to whack it downfield, kick it dead, and opposition dropped it. And they actually changed the rules because of that.
That's right.
And that sort of tactical nous of Dougie Walton or George Clinton, I don't know if he'd instructed him to do it, but it absolutely fascinated me. And I saw how you could influence a game simply by using your smarts within the game, within the rules of the game. And that was one of the things that introduced me to it, as well as wanting to make people and make players better, which is back to my teaching background.
Yeah. And then when clubs come to look at you, John, so like you said, you spent a short spell at Leeds, how would they approach you? And did you speak to them with your mum and dad? Did you do it off your own back? How does that work then, mate?
Well, then you just if you were a pretty good player, you would get scouted, yeah. But then also it wasn't so much because it wasn't signing professional forms, and Cas under-17s were just like the scholarship or the academy now. So you just went there as you would, and so you went to Cas under-17s, played under, and it was only then that they showed interest in signing. And as I said, my dad wouldn't let me sign at first because he said I got to go to college and finish my teaching degree. So I mean, that was the influence of my dad. I was 19 years of age, and he told me I couldn't sign. So that was society then. If he said you didn't do it, you didn't do it. So
Roof is real, isn't it?
yeah, it is,
Yeah.
and so that's why I signed whilst I was at college. I signed, and that was down to my dad because it was so absolute. What he said was, in good Yorkshire, that's not going down that black oil. In other words, I won't going down the pit.
Yeah.
So he saw me getting educated as being a way of avoiding that, and it really stuck to his mantra.
Oh, I like that, mate. And really, I do think the young probably lack that now, don't they? Because they know they can't be sport to like that. I've no doubt if you'd have been cheeky on the street in neighbour, they'd give you the clip as well, wouldn't they?
Exactly right. Yes, yes. I mean, if you misbehaved at school, you're frightened to death because if school teacher told your dad, you got another clout.
You
Yeah.
were in for it.
So you told the line and did as you were told. Yeah.
That's it. You don't back another up with another, mate, do you?
Right, yeah.
So how did you find the gradual change from school rugby to 17s rugby and then 19s rugby?
Well, I mean, it was fascinating because what we always there were a number of us who played at Cas Grammar School, and we're also playing for Cas under-17s. So Saturday morning, we'd go play rugby union for Cas Grammar, and then we'd leg it down and play rugby league for Cas under-17s in the afternoon. There are about too many games in a week. Well, we used to play 2 in a day, and you were just
going.
yeah, you just like playing rugby, and it just came about like that. And it's only as you got more professional as you got older that you realise you've got to look after yourself a bit more. But when you were a kid at school, all you wanted to do was play.
Yeah, you're invincible, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I'm a bit tired. I'll have a sit down for 10 minutes, and I'll be all right to have another game. So yeah.
Position wise, then, mate, where did you grow up playing in league, and then where did you play in union?
I played rugby league. I mean, I just played anywhere in the backs, but my favourite position was centre. So, and in rugby union, I used to play as it is the number 10, the fly half role, which was good because I could kick a ball, and if you could kick a ball, that was half the battle playing that position. So it was, as I say, but I'd have played anywhere. If they'd have said go play prop, I'd have had a go at playing prop. I might not have been very good at it, but I'd have had a go at it, because I just like
And
playing
hopefully
rugby.
you wouldn't have done it again.
Yeah.
You'd look like this otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because the intricacies, mate, like are so different, aren't they? So was you allowed to play what you're seeing, mate?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It wasn't overcoached at all, and a lot of the practice, the training sessions, it all ended up with a game of tig and pass, and I think that's why you got. I mean, there were Roger Millward who came from down Wheldon Road as well, and Roger was one of the most instinctive players you could do, and that's because he played tig and pass at practice sessions, and we used to play tig and pass on welfare, 5-on-5 or something like that, and you just get a rugby ball and play tig and pass, and it just developed your skills, and it became very natural. And it was only as the games developed and coaching's developed, it's become more and more structured.
I remember, mate, like kids everywhere were playing tick and pass, and it has an half, like it's like out of fashion sort of thing, innit? It's tick and passing. It just
It
gives
went
you
very much.
freedom.
Yeah, it went very much out of fashion. But I think that's. You're not telling me that people like Bevan French and Jay Field, they haven't played touch rugby.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I
They're
went
very.
Australian in
Yeah,
2015 and went that
exactly.
grand final, mate. And literally just on the outside of the city centre, there was like 15 games of touch going on.
Yeah, and that develops your natural instinct.
Yeah.
Your evasive skills and your handling skills.
Yeah. And did you play any other sports to enable you to hone in on them skills, mate?
I used to like playing football as well. So I loved any sport, to tell you the truth, John. And even when I was sort of semi-professional at Castleford and teaching, in the when because that was a winter game then, so in the summer I'd have played squash. I was a member of a squash club, and because I just liked sport, and that's remained with me right the way through to today. You know, I take interest in any sport whatsoever. I think the only sport I don't take interest in is Formula One. You can go sit on N62 and watch that, can't you, if you want? But you know, all of the team sports I'm absolutely fascinated by, and I love individual sports such as golf, etc., as well, because of the precision that's required and the dedication that's required.
Yeah. No, so yeah, you weren't half agile then, because squash is a graft, isn't it, John? If
It's
viewers and
tough.
listeners don't
Yeah.
know, yeah.
But it was great because I saw that as like part of the off-season preparation.
Pre-season, yeah.
Yeah, because it was hand-eye coordination. It was twisting and turning for agility, and there was an aerobic base as well. So I saw it tied in great, and I enjoyed it. So it wasn't like I wasn't saying, "Oh, I'm going to have a game of squash because I'm going to make myself more agile for rugby." Well, I'm going to have a game of squash. Why? Because I like playing squash, and I'll try and beat t'other bloke on the other side of the court, you know, and that was it.
Yeah. Malcolm's without hitting the floor,
Yeah,
without
correct.
realising it,
Yeah, correct.
basically, innit?
Yeah, correct. Well, you know where
No,
Malcolm's
because
come from, don't you, John? Malcolm
no,
Reilly.
was it?
That's why they're called Malcolms, because
Right.
he got that. He devised that training drill, and he used to absolutely flog it because he was my coach at Cas, and he was the original Malcolm, was Malcolm Reilly, and they were very, very difficult indeed. But he used to do them with us, and he was always better than us at that. So you had to try and keep up with him.
I was gonna say you can't moan, can you? But he's
No,
ruined
no,
most of
no.
our
Any
summers.
coach is better than you know. No.
No, it's and you a little bit like John, like you probably had to think outside the box at most of the clubs you've been at to keep people interested, to mix it up a little bit, because I imagine the rigors of the game can become a bit tedious at times, mate, especially when it's short turnarounds and that. But it's just the landscape of the game you've got to change with as well, haven't you?
You
But
have,
some
yeah.
things just don't need to change, such as the Malcolms and things
Yeah,
like that as well.
correct. Well, I just think that I always feel that whenever a new coach comes along, they feel as if they've got to reinvent the game. Well, no, you haven't. You know, there's certain principles of the game that will remain no matter what, because it's a principle of a team invasion game. You know, you know, even in football, possession. If you possession, you need to have the ball more than opposition. You need to be able to defend. You need to be able to kick well. You need to support play. They're all principles of the game that, yes, they've changed how we coach them all the time, but they're still the same principles that were there in the 1960s as they are today.
Still, people still use drop-offs, don't they? Still,
Exactly
people
right.
still use first balls,
Yeah,
behind balls, kiwis.
exactly right.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to reinvent the game every week, every season.
Oh, mate, no. I'll be honest though. What I do think though, in even in each league, mate, there's like the teams that tend to be successful are more clinical at what they do, aren't they?
Yes,
The game
yes,
pattern tends to be the same. No offense to people,
yes.
but the execution's on it every
Yeah,
time, or 9 out of 10. That's what I
yeah,
find the difference is, being a non. I've never played that level, John, but I
yeah.
understand lads that have, and I know
Yes,
I can
yes.
see what it takes.
And I agree with you totally, but you still, as you rightly say, that there's lots of similarities in how teams play the game,
Yeah,
but your stellar teams still have your Frenches and your Fields or your
that magic.
Tompkinses. They make
Yeah,
the difference. You know,
yeah,
within that structure, they can use that structure just that bit better than everybody else, and they can read the game that bit better than everybody else, and
yeah.
that's what makes them the true elite, great players.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. So when you've seen the changes in the game throughout your career, sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Has there been any ever changes that you thought maybe have been revolutionary, whether it's rules or like that, and some changes you thought might harm the game? Because you've seen a lot, John, won't you?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think the changes tend to come about because you, the people within the game try to want the game to be. They want the players to decide who wins.
Yeah,
That's that. Whenever I've sort of banged on about, I think this rule should be brought in, or that's not as good. I always put it down to, I want the ball in play as much as possible, and I want the players to decide who wins. You know,
yeah,
so you take the influence of the officials out as much as you. Yes, there's got to be officials and so on and so forth, but I want the players to decide who wins.
No, I like that, mate. Because one thing I'd like to see change, which I've not noticed if it has yet, is the six again. I like it,
Yeah,
but I think if you're under the pump and it's like a lazy chase, but someone's got you delay
yeah,
on, it's just set again, reset. I
yeah,
think you should get a penalty up to maybe your 30,
yeah,
and then do a set restart then, so
yeah,
you can get your way out of trouble if you've warranted a penalty
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. I agree, but also, I mean, I know when it first came in, and I instructed my players when it first came in, and just as it gets toward near half times, it's not a penalty within. You do get your penalties out to 40 metres, but
Yeah,
on your own line. And I'd used to tell them, just lay on, give a six again away. It don't matter, because
yeah.
we'll get our defensive line sorted and just run the clock down like that. So you could use it to your advantage. Perhaps it wasn't in the spirit of the game, but you were trying to
Oh, it
win the
doesn't matter,
game.
mate, does it? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Everyone looks
yeah,
for them. You've got to
yeah.
test the referee, John, haven't you?
Yeah, correct.
The
And
best teams do it
yeah,
really
they
well.
do. They
Yeah.
do.
So when you were that age, then, mate, is the enjoyment at 19 when you've gone back to Cas reinvigorated after Leeds?
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I just didn't. I didn't like it at Leeds. There was the travelling involved, which then were catching buses. It wasn't.
Yeah.
You didn't have your own car then at that age. It were catching buses to get to train and this. So I just didn't enjoy it. But I mean, I just loved it at Cas, and I regretted trying to go elsewhere. But I was fortunate enough to. It was when Les Dill and Keith Worsley they'd signed at Leeds, so Leeds were looking at the Castleford area greatly, and they asked me if I'd go along to their under-17s. I went there for about 6 weeks, but I just didn't like it. So, I went back to where I felt comfortable and where I enjoyed it, which was about 100 yards from where I lived.
Yeah. And wouldn't the fans probably want more of a Cas lad in the team than an outsider as well? It means what it means to you, but you know what it means to them.
Yeah. Well, what I mean, we were really lucky then, because there used to be about 3 overseas players in the team,
Yeah.
but all the rest used to be. I reckon you could have put a pin in Castleford, drawn a circle round it 10 miles, and every player had come within that circle, except for the overseas players. And
I
because
love
of
that.
that,
Yeah.
you had a connection, one with the community, but two with the club. And my word, you cared for the club then, and when that was the case.
Yeah. Plus, if you wanted a drink, you could stumble home as well,
Yeah,
eh?
good, yes, yeah, yeah. From the ship, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how was it juggling work and rugby, mate? Was there ever a time when the compromise nearly had to be given up and work was going to be work?
Well, when you were, I was fortunate enough to I progressed pretty well as a teacher, and I became a deputy head. So there were times when you playing rugby had to come second to your work, because it was a profession. But when I did finish teaching and I went into rugby league full time, that's when you could throw yourself in at it. But when you did a job as well as part time rugby, sometimes the job had to come over the top of part time rugby, and you couldn't do anything about that. That was just the way it was at that time. I mean, but because a load of lads worked down the pit, sometimes you'd realise that there'd be 2 or 3 lads missing simply because it were their shift pattern meant they were down at the pit when we were training. So you can't do anything about that. That was just how society was at the time.
And was that accepted, mate? Yeah, was it understood?
It was
Yeah,
understood. Yeah, it was understood, because, as I say, it was a part-time game. But now, obviously, it's a full-time game. That's their job. So
yeah, yeah,
that's their number one priority. So
yeah.
there wouldn't be any acceptance of that, of other commitments coming before your job that they're now, because your job's rugby league.
Yeah, I remember, like, you and what you and Dowles. I remember, I think he
Yes,
went working, didn't he? And he said he
he did.
remember turning up some Thursdays, there was six, was half of them were at Sellafield, and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and that's how it is, isn't it? So
It
for
is.
some people, I imagine that transition, if yeah, no offense, people, if you're phasing out your career and you
Yeah,
start transitioning into that, I bet you that's difficult.
it is. It's very.
Yeah,
I mean, Kyle Amor, he found it real difficult when he
yeah,
went from sort of full time to part time at Widnes, and then he was juggling that, making his way as a sort of pundit stroke commentator as well. And
yeah,
he found it really difficult. Now he's at ease. He's gone through that transition. But I think every player who goes through that, because if you're a full-time rugby league player, your week's so structured, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you know what to wear,
Yeah.
what you're going to be
Yeah.
doing, etc., right the way through until the game, and then the cycle continues for the week after, and so on and so forth. Whereas when you transition out of that, you've not got that structure and those systems within there, because you have to make your own way in the world, and it is very, very difficult. And I think that's one of the good things that Rugby League Cares does, is that there is a transition manager in Francis Stevenson who helps players do that.
Yeah, no, I like that, but really jumping ahead a little bit now. But the Kyler Moore thing, there was no better mentor than you, really, was there? So you've tasted that side of the game from a player's perspective. You've tasted that side as a coach
Yeah,
perspective. You're also dipping in and out of punditry and
yeah,
commentary. So,
yeah.
so really, mate, he was quite lucky that you were where you was at the time. You was as well. Not saying he couldn't have done it on his own. That's not what I'm saying at all. But
Yeah,
it's always nice to lean on someone, John, if you have
it
to,
is,
isn't it?
yeah, it is. And I think he appreciated the fact that I understood it as well. But he is a very gifted pundit stroke commentator as well. So he was going to make his way in that manner anyway. And it's so pleasing to see that he's made such a great success of it.
So when the debut comes along, mate, for Cass,
Yeah.
what does that mean to you and the family? And do you remember much about the build up to it at all?
I don't remember much about the build up to it, but I do remember, because my dad played for Cass as well.
Right.
And when I made my debut, I think there was about 8 father sons who'd played for Cass. And I know full well that my dad he wasn't one of these flowery people. He was an hard-nosed Yorkshireman, and it wasn't all lovey-dovey. But I knew he were very proud when I made my
Yeah.
debut. And the debut came at St Helens, and
Away.
it did, and it was an evening game, midweek game from a postponed one early in the season. So I made my debut on a Wednesday night at St Helens, and my dad made the effort to travel, and that was some effort before the M62,
Yeah.
and I know full well he never told me, but I knew he was very, very proud indeed when that happened, as I was as well.
I was gonna say, mate. So what's it like when you sit under that peg and you're looking at because they'd have been idols to you. You've
Yeah,
grew up on
yeah,
Wheldon Road. You're
yeah,
virtually born in the stadium,
yeah,
weren't you? So
yes.
how was that, mate?
It was great. I mean, it was unbelievable, and like you say, you sat there, and you're getting changed at side of people like John Joyner and Malcolm Reilly, and you think, I am living the dream, and that first game was I mean, I can't remember much about the game at all, but I can just remember the pride when you entered the field of play. So it was that more than anything, and I think it was the connection with my dad that I knew how proud he was as well, without him, lovey-doveying me. Just the fact that there was the knowing look, which was really good.
For the start, it was the effort to get there, wasn't it? Because
Yeah,
it's a tough going back then, mate,
it
in the
certainly
pits
was. Yeah, yes, it
and
was.
living outside the work and that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
No, and you know what, mate? I love the fact that you can, the father sons that have played.
Yeah,
That's a real connection as well, isn't it?
it
And
is.
that's a
Yes.
thing of generations well
Yeah.
after you will look at.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
proper
yeah.
good legacy thing, that, mate. I
It
like
is.
that.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, the Ardises, the Marchants, the Samsons, they're
Yeah.
the others as well. So it's nice to be alongside those. Yeah.
Oh, but it isn't. And back then, mate, there was plenty of trophies to play for, wasn't
Yeah,
there? And
yeah,
you play no, and which I love. So when you see these amount of fixtures, it's because you were playing probably 3 times a week at times, weren't you?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
sevens, floodlights,
yeah,
Yorkshire Cup, where it'd have been Lancashire Cup for us,
yeah, yeah,
uh, the Championship or your League One. Everything was to play for. And
yeah.
what I've come to realise is you didn't really get a rest either. Like, you
No,
only come off if you were injured, and you
yeah,
picked your best team every game, didn't you?
exactly right. Yes, yes, it was. But then again, inevitably there were injuries, so it came around that you'd get your chance. But yeah, it was, and like you say, I mean, there was Regal Trophy that became John Player Trophy, Challenge Cup, Championship, Yorkshire Cup, Yorkshire League as well. Which was also uh, it was manufactured a Yorkshire League within the other leagues, within the main league. So there was all sorts to play for. But I don't think it was so much that. It was more the fact that you loved playing. And in fact, I was fortunate enough to play in Challenge Cup semi-finals and Premiership finals, Yorkshire Cup final. That was like a side issue, It was just because we got a good team. Because all I wanted to do was play and enjoy playing.
And for Cass, if you could, obviously, with it
Yes.
being you. So do you know when them big games come along, mate? How playing wise, because we'll go on to the coaching side of it later. But how do you prep for them games, especially being a local lad? Probably everywhere you looked, you couldn't avoid it. I imagine back then.
No, no, and you embraced it. It
Yeah.
was just great fun. But as I say, you're within that community. So because you were within that community, you knew what it meant to the other people as well, who were standing on terraces and cheering you on or telling you were rubbish or whatever they were doing, But you were part of that
Getting on you than
community.
that.
Yeah, yes. So well, yeah, in a
Yeah.
polite manner, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, no, it was, it came about because I was fortunate enough to play in a good team. So, the fact we had a good team was all well and good. But as I say, again, we were Cas lads. And I'm still mates with people like Stevie Gill and Barry Johnson and Keith and Kevin Jones and Ian Hardesty, and John Joyner. You still meet up with them at past and present players do, and all the memories come flooding back, and it's great.
And that's the thing. Good. Yeah, you've virtually answered it for me. But the trophies and the big occasions are nice, but the friendships and memories are
Correct.
far more
Correct.
important, aren't they?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is, and that's why I love team sports because
yeah.
it's the relationship and the bond that you build up within your group that's so special.
I know you keep saying you were lucky you were in a good team, but it takes a good player to be in a good team as well, John. There's
Yeah,
not
it
you
is.
don't you rarely get a passenger, do you, in
Well,
rugby
no,
league?
you couldn't because
Yeah,
it's a team game, isn't it? And
yeah,
you've all got your role to play. And if you're not playing that role, you won't be in it because I mean Malcolm really was my coach, and it was a pretty ruthless coach, I'll tell you. And it was a fearsome character. If he said jump, you said how high.
yeah,
You didn't say why. You said how high. All right, Mal, I'll do it.
yeah.
Yes, and
You
that
could
was.
say that I was a chubby lad, mate. I was only getting that high.
So
No, it's just it must be nice to be in them occasions, mate, and be able to. You probably didn't at the time, and you'll probably say that now, but look around and semi take it all in, maybe pick a family member out or that type of thing.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, like again, I was fortunate. I played a Premiership final against Hull KR in '84, and that Premiership final was on my mum's birthday. So that made that special, and my mum were in the crowd. So yeah, there is,
Class.
but it's and I've got lovely medals as well that
Yeah.
are in the draw. But it ain't about the medals. It's about it's about the memories that you create and the bonds that you create with people, and that continued as well, not just from playing but into coaching as well, because even now when we meet up with the Eagles, have regular reunions, that Sheffield Eagles team, and you won't see them from year to year, but when you see them, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, and you've shared a very, very special experience, and that's what's so good about sport.
No, it is, mate. It is. So we'll come to that transition now, then, John, and you phase out of the game playing wise, and originally as a conditioner at Cass, wasn't you? So
Yeah.
why did the playing stop, and was it a decision that you were at ease with?
Yeah, very much it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was really chuffed when Malcolm asked me to join his team as a conditioner, and I know full well why he did it, because as a PE teacher, you'd been sort of trained as your background had been about doing different drills, and you understood about the conditioning of players. So it became really, it was easy to become that, and it seemed like a natural progression to do that. So when Malcolm asked, yeah, I'd love to do it, and so you just joined the coaching staff with that, and looked after that side of it.
right. And then, sorry, mate, I've gone past it, but when your career off the pitch is doing that as well, and you become deputy head and that, is
Yeah.
that just as a proud moment? Because that was probably never in your spectrum, really. You just wanted to be a PE teacher.
Yeah, Yeah, it was. I think it's in my nature, John, to just try my best at whatever I do, and you tend to find if you try your best, you apply yourself and you work hard, you tend to have a bit of success as well. And so, yeah, there's an element of pride in that as well. And it wasn't an easy decision as well to give up teaching. And it was a gamble, but I was fortunate enough that the gambles paid off. Some 30 odd year later, I was still coaching, so I was fortunate with regard to that. But there again, that might have been because I was half decent at that job as well, and that's why I kept getting jobs. So you just apply yourself. But I've always been one take opportunities, experience life, and give of your best. And if you do that, I think you'll have a half decent life.
No, I like that. I agree, mate. I like that. So when you become conditioner, mate, are you a semi-liaison and does you between a coach and the playing system? So would the playing system send like a rumble through you first for a feeler before they went to Malcolm? Or did you any relationships change with the players?
No, not really.
No.
No, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't like that. You didn't have leadership groups and things like that. I mean, Malcolm really just told you what you to do. That was the top and bottom of it. So you did it.
You know what though? There's no wrong with that
No,
old school
that's
leadership model, is there?
that's how it was in those
Yeah.
days, and now there's all sorts of different leadership models, but in those days, he was the boss, and what the boss said went, and that was
Yeah,
it.
autocratic nature, that's what it was,
Correct,
yeah.
correct.
Yeah. So Bramley come about, didn't it, mate? And what
Yeah,
how did
that
that
came
all come
because
around?
one of my mates, Barry Johnson, I've already mentioned, he got
Yeah.
the job at Bramley, and he asked me to go along with him. So again, it was something different, uh, taking me out of my comfort zone, and I went there and did it, and we did okay. Whilst we were there, we did okay, and then, I managed to get into the governing body side of it, which was Phil Larder approached me about that, and I got onto the governing body side of it. Enjoyed that, but then went into clubland. So it was, it's been an interesting life within rugby league. It has.
I think the longevity, mate, is maybe coincides with understanding how the game works on and off the field.
Yeah,
So I know when you come to witness it weren't plain sailing. Like we've had issues and that a few years. I know you've been Bradford when there were still issues there,
yeah,
or at the back end or the beginning of. So with you being able to understand, and unfortunately some people have to early the business model of the sport.
yeah,
Does that just allow you just to get on with the on-field training and not have whatever comes from
yeah.
off the field?
I think the more experienced you are, the more confident you are as well, aren't you? And you're aware of the politics within the sport and within clubs, and consequently, it don't really bother you then. You just think, well, that's they've to do that. I'll do this, and I'll give them my best. And if it works out, all well and good. If it don't, that's by the by. But I'm pretty pleased. I think it's 640 odd head coaching things I've done, and I've been sacked 3 times. So I use it as a cricket terminal. That's 648 for three. I think that's a pretty good score.
Not bad, mate. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like it. So when you left Bramley and become the player performance, again, was that left on good terms, mate? And was that
Yeah,
an
yeah.
avenue you thought you'd ever take?
And it wasn't. No, again,
No.
it was down to Phil Larder. Oh, and
Yeah.
again, I had to give. That was the time I had to give up teaching. So
Okay.
I thought long and hard about that, but I just thought that it was something different, and it was an opportunity that might not pop up again. So I did it, and I loved working with Phil. I thought he was miles ahead of his time, and I was fortunate enough as well at the governing body. Then it was David Howes and David Oxley initially, and then it was Maurice Lindsay, and he was a visionary leader as well. He wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but he was a leader, and he took the game where he wanted it to go, and he made the game better. So, I enjoyed my time at the governing body as well.
Were the clubs open to working with you, John, when you were
Yeah,
with the
yes,
governing body? Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that we did, and it caused a bit of a furore at the time, we implemented the academy system, and there was, Barla kicked up against it at that time, and I understand why. But we were employed by the RFL, and the RFL thought it was the way forward, and Phil Ladd and myself thought it was the way forward, and we worked really hard to implement that academy system. And I think you'll see that in the fullness of time, it's been proven to be right. That was in the 90s, and now the real top clubs have got great academies and they produce great homegrown players, as Wigan and St Helens and Leeds demonstrate year on year.
Yeah. Oh, and it was definitely a strong point of ours at Widnes for a long time,
Yes,
wasn't it? Before
yes,
the
yeah,
whole thing come about. But
yeah,
so really, mate, is it as much as you're playing and coaching, you've got real good milestones and landmarks to look back on? That's like something that you can never be took away from you to be a part of implementing a real positive change on the game.
yeah,
Have you thought
yeah.
of it like that before?
I haven't really, no.
Yeah.
But it was just something that we
So I need to
thought was,
throw it at you then.
yeah, well, yeah. But it was something that we just thought was right for the game.
Yeah.
To get young players to get the best possible coaching at the earliest time. And I think it's been proven to be the correct way, and I think it's accepted that. But as with any change, there comes some resistance to it, and the governing body and Phil and myself, we had to dig our heels in and say this is what we believe in, this is how we go forward, and we take it forward, and it worked out.
That's on the clubs then to have a bond with the community clubs. So if it doesn't work out, there's a smooth transition back
Yes,
into the grassroots
yes,
game, in it. That's
yeah.
not your responsibility. That's for the
No,
clubs to,
it is, but
yeah,
I just think that it's intrinsic. You've got to have good grassroots, or
yeah,
else there's no flowery stuff at the top, is there?
no,
Which is
no,
the elite game. So there's
yeah,
got to be real strong foundations that people can lay and then transition through as they go up the tree into the more elite sort of side of the sport. But you've got to have a wide participation base to start with, or else you're absolutely snookered.
yeah. No, everybody needs everybody. Hence why
Correct.
what we spoke about before,
Yeah.
town team's real important.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if you know you get one player that had never picked the ball up before, turn up to a
Correct.
trial,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've one player more in that
Yeah.
pool.
Correct.
And
Correct. It is. It's
no,
absolutely
I just think
vital.
that's like a real credit to you that you brought the academy system in, because the thing is, John, they've tried to lose it, and it's
Yeah.
come back. It's not going anywhere, is it?
No, no, no,
It's a
because
proven
it's the
success.
right thing. Yeah, it's the
Yeah, yeah,
right thing. That's
yeah,
and we felt that at that point in time. And Maurice Lindsay was a main mover behind it as well. He was absolutely adamant that it was the correct thing to do. And
yeah,
Phil and myself, we were lucky because we got tasked with implementing it, but it was his vision as much as anything as well.
yeah. Right, no, I like that, mate. And then PSG comes around,
Yeah.
yeah, and was again was you're not scared of a challenge, mate, to say the very least, are you? So what difficulties did that bring, and did it take much to talk you into do it?
Well, I was seconded actually from the RFL for that. It was 14 weeks, half a season, and
Yeah,
it was Maurice Lindsay again. And Maurice had been instrumental behind the European Super League.
yeah,
Well, which is how they launched it. Well, the European Super League, part of the base was there was a French team in there, and that was PSG then, not Catalan. And PSG weren't going so good at that point in time, so it looked like, because they weren't exempt from relegation, it looked like they could get relegated. Well, that would have absolutely been a bad thing for the game, basically. And so Morris sort of said, I'd like you to go over there. I'll second you over there to take over from a guy called Michel Mazrae. He'll assist you, and your job is just to keep him in Super League. And it was as simple as that. And
yeah,
he sent me over there, and I'd fought it, and I loved every minute of it. It was very difficult. There was logistical problems because all the players were from the south of France, because that's where rugby league
right,
is very strong there.
yeah,
So you went down the south of France, trained, and then you flew up to Paris for home games, or you flew up to England for away games. So it logistically was unbelievable, but it was never sustainable in Paris, which is why I'm
yeah.
glad that the team emerged, such as Catalan, in the south of France, because that's where the strength of the French game was.
And do you think because you had that about you they sent you there to maybe pick your brains when you come back as to whether a relocation, for instance, was viable. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a very, very smart man, was Maurice Lindsay, and
right.
you know,
Because
and
he does get stick, mate, doesn't he?
it does, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's like anything else, isn't it? You know, great leaders do, because not
yeah,
everybody agrees with what they do. But great leaders also have the vision, and they've got the, shall we say, the balls to stick with that vision as
yeah. That
well.
exactly that. The nuts. Yeah,
Yeah, and he did that, and you know, so and he would listen to people. Yes, he would. But when he decided on a path to take, he took the path, which is the reason why I thought the RFL was successful when he was there. Great Britain was successful when he was their team manager, and Wigan, I would say, were pretty successful when he was their chairman as well.
yeah,
So he didn't do a bad job, did he?
yeah. No, not at all. But did that reignite a love to be on the field again, John?
Yes, it
Maybe.
did.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it did. That was
Right.
one when you felt you got a scratch and you started itching. You thought, "Oh, this is good." This, so you know,
Right.
and again, it was Phil Larder that took me over to Sheffield then. You
Okay.
know, so Phil was head coach. I became his assistant, and it just went. It snowballed from there, and that was the start of full time coaching that lasted from the 90s right the way through to the 2020s. So yes, I had a long innings, but I sleep a lot better on the night now.
You look fresh. I'll be honest, mate. You look fresh. I'll speak to you later about what you have to do to stay looking young, mate. But so when, as an assistant, then John, how do you find the roles different from being a head? Is there less pressure, mate, but you're a
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
more on the field?
yeah. Assistant's a great job because you've got your input, you've got your camaraderie with the players. You also feel as if you're contributing to any success that's there, but it ultimately there's that chopping block in your neck that's on it. So
Yeah.
it's a great job to have, but then you know the head coach is a great job to have as well, but that's got different pressures.
So when did the change from assistant to head coach come about?
I mean, Phil lost his job at Sheffield, uh,
Yeah.
and then I had half a season in '97 as the head coach. Then they offered me the job sort of permanently then, and then first year we won cup, so uh, we did all right.
Legendary status, mate.
Yeah, 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 we did all right. Yeah, probably the
So do you
most
know when?
important day of my life. Yeah, for the
Yeah.
for my rugby league career. Yeah.
So do you know from? Sorry to, you've probably been asked this hundreds of times, John, but how different do you treat a league system to a cup system?
I mean, it is difficult,
Yeah.
but the league you've got your processes that you go through and so on. But when it's a knockout, and it's not just a Challenge Cup, it's any knockout or any
Yeah.
international. When it's a one-off knockout, there's that extra bit of special spice, and you have to find a narrative. And I loved looking for narratives virtually in every game,
Yeah.
and trying to sell it to the players, which would allow them to give them a reason, the why to perform so well. And I try to find it week in, week out. It's hard to do. It's harder to do over the season, but it's much easier to do in one-off knockout games, which is what we had in the Challenge Cup and what there is in playoff games.
So maybe like a soundbite from an opposition done your job for you, John,
There's
sometime.
also, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
again going back to Sheffield, uh, there was Paul Brobe and myself. Once we got in the final, you went to all these media press conferences, and I wasn't that well known, but John Money certainly was. Paul Broben wasn't that well known. Well, Andy Farrell certainly was, and there was
Right.
Phil Clark as chief executive. So whenever we went there, there used to be us there, and nobody talked to me and Paul Broben. They just wanted to talk, and we just used that as sort of, it was like fuel to our fire.
Yeah.
Oh, they're ignoring us, are they? Well, we'll make sure
Yeah.
they won't ignore us when the big day comes around. And
Yeah.
there's all sorts of little things you could feed, and we fed it back to the players, and it was all, they don't think we've a chance here, so let's just be quiet, let's keep our heads down, let's work hard, and let's smash them when the day comes.
Yeah. And
And
I was going to say, so your first massive day with a
yeah,
suit on rather than a playing suit on,
yes, yes.
how how do you look after you and control your emotions so it doesn't relay onto the lads?
Yeah, I embraced it, to tell you the truth. I liked being emotional. I'm a pretty emotional person, and I liked that. And I wanted the players to see that it cared to me, that I cared about it as well. So
Yeah.
I'm not one of these where, oh, it's just another game, because it ain't another game. You know, it's
Oh,
Challenge Cup final, it's Wembley, and there's going to be
yeah.
70,000 folk watching you, you know, so it
Yeah.
isn't ever any other game. It's a special game, and that should give you even more reason to produce your absolutely stellar performance. And we bought upon that, and we had another little narrative that we told as well when Wimbledon won the FA Cup. The crazy gang, and
Crazy
we
guy.
had our crazy gang, and it were led by Johnny Lawless and a lad called Darren Turner. And as I said, when we were in the tunnel at Wembley, there's Rocky Turner and there's Johnny Lawless shouting 98, it's our year, which is what Wimbledon had done in 88 to the Liverpool
Right.
players. It's 98, it's our, and all the Wigan players, Gary Connolly and Andy Farr, were looking at it, these boys are mad. And yeah, we were, but my word, we're mad
Yeah.
in a good way, you know. So it was, there's all sorts of little things you could just use just to try and get that edge, just to produce that special performance.
How do you keep and manage on people's workloads building up to games like that, mate? So did you have any threats of any injuries at out, and how do you maintain that?
Yeah, there was, I mean, between the semi-final and final,
Yeah.
and it's a bit like Eddie Howe recently with Newcastle. Between when they won the League Cup, because it was such a big thing for Newcastle, he basically was practicing for the League Cup final right the way through. That's what we did at Sheffield. There were 4 league games between us qualifying for Wembley and playing at Wembley, and we used those 5 weeks. They were all training with Wembley in mind.
Right.
So our tactics were developing over those time to play Wigan, not to play Hull and Huddersfield and teams like that we played in the interim. It was all designed for that one day. And we told the players that. The players were
Yeah.
aware of that as well. So
Yeah.
they knew basically what we were doing. We're practicing for Wembley for 5 weeks. And
You were going to get a buy-in on that, mate, weren't you? There was, yeah, you didn't need much talking
no,
there,
not
did
at
you?
all, not at
Yeah.
all. No, and
Yeah.
and they were great. They were absolutely sensational. I mean, those players, they were above and beyond, but they were better as well than people. When I first took over at Sheffield, I felt the players didn't believe how good they were. So
Yeah.
the big thing was getting them to believe that they were a good team, because they were a good team. You know, you don't have
Yeah.
people like Keith Senior, although as a young lad playing. Paul Broadbent,
Yeah.
he played for Great Britain. Mark Aston, he's a kind of player. We had Dave Watson use it. We'd got some really good players. Well, good players make a good team, and we were a good team. But they started to believe it as the time went on. They started to believe it. When they started to believe it, that's when I knew it went from my vision to their shared vision, and that's
Yeah.
when the performance came as it did.
It definitely does. So you just said it there. So from mine to basically ours.
Yes,
So
correct,
there's
correct.
that
Yes,
connection then, mate,
yeah,
in it.
yeah.
So at what point in that day did you know it weren't over? Did you believe throughout, mate? Like
Yeah,
even once the lads were out there, was there ever that time where you just went, "This is our day," this, and it clicked for you?
I just we had a real simple tactic for kicking, and distance kicks. We were going to kick behind a lad called Mark Bell, who was on one wing because he got the turning circle of the Titanic. So we're going to turn him round and
Yeah.
chase that. And in good ball kicks, we're going to sit it on Jason Robinson's head, because Jason Robinson's 5'7".
Yeah.
So if
The
you're
Aussies
getting
done it in the World Cup final, didn't they?
yeah, if you'll get him
Yeah, yeah.
stood there at 5'7", somebody can run and jump and get. And we scored after about 8-9 minutes with that tactic, and you could just sort of see it. Well, like, bloody hell, we've got this, and
Yeah.
and the perform, and we didn't make an error for 33 minutes,
That's some
So,
going that in it.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and the players just bought into it and produced on the day, and it was great for me, but they did it, and I think
Yeah.
that's what people have to realize. They had to implement everything that we spoke about, and they did it to the absolute nth degree. They were absolutely first class, and that's why we've such as I say, with such a bond, and it don't matter, we'll become old farts in years to come, but we'll still have that bond, and we'll still love each other, and we'll still remember that day.
No, that's what's outstanding. I bet that night was first class as well, wasn't it,
That
mate?
night it was full Monty night, and the vast majority did the full Monty. I'll tell you. So it was a good night. Yes, it was.
Yeah. No, I love that.
We'll
And
keep
then,
that within our group.
yeah, I don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you. So how does that mentality and the ability to put information and patterns across change to the international game, John?
I think the international game. What the simplest thing with the international game is you pick the players and you ask them to do what they do at the club, because that's why you picked them. So
Do what you do well.
correct,
Yeah.
correct, and you just sell it that. So any system or structure at that level, it's got to incorporate, the players' natural, what they're doing week in, week out. So you don't ask them to do something different to what they're doing week in, week out. And I think it's as simple as that. And the international coaching with England, etc., is much easier, I feel, than club coaching, because of the standard of the cattle that you've got at your available.
Best of the best.
Yeah. So, and again, it's saying you picked because of this. Well, let's carry on doing this, and and they do, and I'm certain that if with a bit of luck, we might get these Ashes at the end of the year, which would absolutely blow my mind, because obviously it's so long since we've beaten Australia in an Ashes series, and I just think it'd be great it'd be such a fillip for the game.
I think so, mate. Do you know what I proper disliked the other year is, because they delayed the World Cup because they weren't coming.
Yeah.
I
I
won't
agree.
lie, that done my head in that.
Yeah, but there again, I honestly believe as well, John, that our biggest way that we'll get success with rugby league in this country is for the NRL to take us over.
Yeah.
Because
No, I appreciate you'd have always had if you'd have won it. Well, the Aussies weren't there. You
yeah,
would have, wouldn't you? It's a
yeah,
fact. But I
yeah,
think it just give them even more credit to how much they control the game.
yeah,
We all know
yes,
they do, don't we, John?
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
not beat around the
yeah,
bush.
yeah,
But I think it highlighted the importance of them, and
yes,
and they
yes,
do sort of look down on our game, don't they, a little bit?
yes, yeah. Well, I mean, but I think that their administrators, they're a bit like Maurice Lindsay. Their
Yeah.
administrators know where they want to go. I like this Vegas thing that they're doing. They've not
Different
done it.
gravy, that one. It.
They've not done it as a one-off. They've said we're coming for
Yeah.
5 years. So
Yeah.
they've committed all that finance and and they've got the clubs to buy in, so that they're selling the game in North America for 5 years. And
Yeah.
fortunately, we've got some visionary people at clubs such as Wigan, the Wigan and Warrington clubs, who've jumped on
Yeah.
the back of that, and hopefully others will as well, so that we
Yeah.
get our presence out there also. But as I say, I think the best way forward for us will be to be taken over by the NRL. I really do.
Yeah. I
So
do. I'll be honest. Like when they promote the game, they don't half
they do.
promote it, don't
Yes,
they?
they know what they're
Yeah.
doing. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And I'm sure ESPN want to extend already.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, Vegas Commission have said it's
yeah,
astronomical what comes in the
yeah,
atmosphere and
yeah,
things.
yeah,
But I agree with you, John. I just thought it gave him that little edge they needed to say,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
if we don't want to do something, we won't do it. But I
yeah.
understand the game's weaker without them.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Very much so.
right, mate. And then on the back of the cup final, then, and that wave you're on, how come the merge come about? And what was the feeling around everybody? Then was the disappointment, was the friction there?
Yeah. Uh,
Or you can
it's
tell me to do one.
no. It's a difficult one to tell you the truth, because
Yeah,
we were sold something that didn't actually come off. We were sold a merge club, and it wasn't a merge club; it was a takeover. And
that's very different, though, isn't it?
yes, it is, and that's why I admire Mark Aston so much, because Mark stuck with Sheffield, and rugby league would have been dead in professional rugby league would have been dead in Sheffield if it wouldn't have been for Mark
Where's the
Aston.
mark? Yeah.
And
And
he's
everyone I've spoke to speaks so I am
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
and he stuck with them, and and as I say, we as full-time players and coaches, we moved to the Huddersfield Sheffield joint venture, but it wasn't. It was a takeover basically, and it just there were two different cultures coming together that just didn't quite marry. It was really different, and it was only when Tony Smith, came in as just the Huddersfield club that Huddersfield started picking up. But the culture at Huddersfield, the culture at Sheffield were vastly different, and it clashed when we attempted to merge.
So how does that make you feel when you're sort of stuck in the middle, John, when that's happening?
It was. Well, I'd turned the St Helens job down as well before Ellery
Well,
Hanley
that
got
doesn't
the
help
St
then,
Helens.
does it?
Yeah, I turned the St Helens job down to stay with, because I thought things were going to happen at Sheffield and it were going to go from strength to strength. Well, it proved not to do that. It proved too expensive, and then that takeover came. So I kicked myself. I thought that was a poor career decision of mine, but that was a career decision I took on the back of my
misinformation, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. So
Sorry to speak over you, John, and that I don't mean to do that, but I know you're going to be real polite about it. But really, that's what it was.
It was, yes. It was, yes. I mean, we're sold that. I don't know. We're sold something that wasn't going to happen, basically. Yeah. I mean,
So where did that leave you, mate?
Well, I'd bought a house between Sheffield and Huddersfield as well, so so that perhaps wasn't the smartest thing to do either. But no, it left me pretty ticked off, to tell you the truth. But again, it's something that you just realise you've just got to handle, deal with, and progress, because it's no good hacking on about what's happened in the past. You've got to look to the future and try to make a success of that.
Yeah, but you've had plenty of reason to dislike the game, and you're absolutely the complete difference, aren't you?
Yes,
you love the game.
I do. Yeah, I do, and I always will. I'm not one of these who, as you get, it's not as good as in my day, and this that, and the other. I love rugby league. I really do. And rugby league's given me so much. So
You've given that so much as well, though, mate.
I've tried
It works both ways.
I've tried my best, yes, to do that. But it's a great game, and I've got so many great memories to take from it that I will never ever speak badly about the game of rugby league, because it's provided me so much joy.
I like it, mate. So Wigan and an assistant, was it Stu Raper, mate? Yeah.
It was Stu Raper, but there's a tale behind that as well, because we did the World Cup in 2000 with Andy Farrell, and it wasn't the most successful campaign, but I think Andy felt I could perhaps coach, and he recommended me to Stuart and to Maurice Lindsay as to go there as assistant. So I went over.
Does he know you're free for the Lions? Yeah.
I'll give him a ring. Yeah. And I went over there again, working under Maurice Lindsay, but it was Faz really who pushed me for that, and that was successful, because we went up to Murrayfield and bit St Helens when we shouldn't have beaten them. So that was another little Challenge Cup in the Radlinski final when Chris shouldn't have played because of that foot injury. He had an infection in his foot, and he had it drained by the doctor on the morning of the game, and then he won the man of the match. So what a great narrative that was, and again, that was a great day. And Adrian Lamb was in that team as well. I was obviously doing all right at Lee. Andy Farrell, Dennis Betts. He wasn't a bad coach, and obviously Andy Farrell ain't a bad coach, is he? So there were some brains in that team as well. And again, it was a great period of time there, and we had great success.
How would you manage to leave? Maybe when you said the World Cup campaign wasn't very successful, how do you manage to leave a bad day at the office behind and move on, John? Have you found that easy as you've got a bit more experience?
Yeah.
As
you get more experience, you could treat victory and defeat as two imposters, because if you know you're doing your job as best you can, I think you can sleep on a night and you can look yourself in the mirror. And I've always felt that I've tried my best, and I've done what I felt is the right thing at that moment in time. So I'm quite at ease with if you don't get success. Well, that's part of it, because at times you will get success as well, and that makes, when you do get success, it makes it taste even sweeter.
I bet it does, mate. So when you're in and around that caliber of player, and again you're very hands-on as an assistant, like you mentioned before. You're itching that itch again, aren't you, after a disappointment, not only with the World Cup, but with the merger.
Yes.
So is it a pleasure to be back around that again, mate? And it
Yeah,
makes
very
you want to
much so.
become a head coach.
Very much so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I got on really well with Stuart. He was a great bloke and a very smart rugby league coach. But
yeah,
the players are an absolute pleasure to be in and around, and the standards there at Wigan, they're the similar standards to what they've got now. It
yeah.
hasn't just happened overnight. It's been
No, no.
developed over years and years and years, and they
Yeah,
were instrumental. I think the Wigan of the '80s started it all off, and it's just
yeah,
developed as that DNA and that culture within that great club, and that's why the standards are so high, so consistently, and that's why they're so successful so consistently.
yeah. So do you know when you're bringing an import in, John? How do you go about doing your homework as in cons? Because you can never guarantee they're going to be the same bloke that A
No,
another had a year or
no,
two ago, can you?
no.
And the game's very different here as well, isn't it?
You've just got to deal with due diligence. That's all.
Yeah,
And you don't just listen to what the agent tells you, because
yeah.
agents tell you
Imagine.
that every player is the greatest player in the world. That they've got on
Yeah,
their books. But what you've got to do, you develop networks within the game, and you
yeah,
just ask around and find out as much as you can about them and about it. The playing ability is easy to assess because it's
yeah.
there for everybody to see on video or whatever. But it's the other parts of it as well, how they fit into a group and so on and so forth, that you've really got to do your due diligence with. And that's when you ring your mates and say, what's he like then? Is he a good bloke? And this and so, and you just build up a picture of them, not only as players, but of people. And that's
Yeah.
when you're trying to get the right recruits over here.
Yeah, fundamentally, imagine you don't truly know that till they're here, do you?
No, no. There's
Yeah,
always that element of
yeah.
risk, there is, but there's an element of risk in tactics you produce and the team you pick and everything, isn't there? But it just
You've
comes.
just got to be willing to walk away, I imagine, John.
It's what, sorry?
Sometimes. You've just got to be willing to walk away from it sometimes, I
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
very much so, very much so.
So then you go on to another big club in Hull.
Yeah,
And did you realise how big Hull was before you got there?
uh, I realised it was a very big, because when I'd played, Hull and
Yeah.
Hull KR dominated the playing scene. and
Okay.
and I knew full well how big it was there. But
Yeah.
when you get there, that is a goldfish bowl. It really is Hull, and they know if you have fish and chips, you've had scraps with your fish and chips, or you put salt and vinegar on. They know absolutely everything that's going on, and
Yeah.
but there again, when there is a connection between the club and the fans, it's magic. It's magic, and when we won the cup in 2005, and the journey back, we started on from Costello Athletic Stadium right the way into the town hall in the middle of Hull, and it was packed all the way along. And then when we stood on the balcony at the town hall, there were buildings, but you couldn't see any ground. It was just black and white. It was unbelievable. It was, and there was a true connection between the fans and the club at that time. And I think they're just getting it back now under John Cartwright.
Yeah.
They've had this great start, and when that connection works, Hull are a massive, massive club. They really are. And again, it was something I thoroughly enjoyed there.
The thing since you as well, Hull have brought on paper the right caliber of player in. For
Yeah,
just some reason, it hasn't
yeah,
worked. But that pack they had only a couple of years ago was an international quality pack,
yes, it was.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
He managed to
yes,
get Gaz back and stuff. It was like
yeah,
Manu Mao,
yeah,
Iggy Sal, Sate,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and he was still playing at nine. Like it's
yeah.
close to a title winning pack, really.
Yes,
I
it
imagine
is.
as an halfback, you'd want to
Yeah,
play behind that,
yeah.
wouldn't you?
Well, it'd be like shelling peas behind that pack. Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just I don't know what it is. It's not quite work, but it looks like Rich has got the right type of people around him now
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Cartwright and his
Yeah.
lads playing, isn't he? Who
Yes,
is
he is.
playing well, and it just
Yeah.
seems to be.
Yeah.
Plus, we talked before about academy products.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
There's
that
some good ones
blend,
in
John.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but usually,
Yes.
mate, when that sort of stuff comes together, it's usually
Yeah.
quite a good outcome, isn't
It
it?
is. It is very much
Yeah,
so. Yeah. Yeah. And they've been very canny in the recruiting and so on and so forth. And
yeah,
and it's good to see. Rugby league needs a strong Hull, because
yeah,
it just adds to the profile. The city of Hull now is a rugby league city because Hull KR are doing so well, and Hull FC are
yeah.
in re-emerging. So it really is bouncing over there now at this point in time, and it's good for the game.
Yeah. OKR at the minute, mate, are a pleasure to watch, aren't they? It's
They are. They are.
yeah,
They're a very, very good team, and what Willie Peters done with them defensively, they're awesome. But they've
yeah,
still got that ability to play some good football, and
well,
they've
yeah,
got their X factors, aren't they? In Mikey Lewis and so on and so forth.
yeah,
So yeah, they're a good team. They're a very good
yeah.
team.
Do you know what, mate? I think he might have played under you, hadn't he? But do you know, Hadley.
Yes, he did. He played at
I wonder,
Wakefield. Yeah,
I wonder. Oh, from what
it,
I see in it, I
yeah,
underrated he is. Dean is a
outstanding.
top player, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He is
Yeah,
outstanding player, and he'll do the tough stuff. And he's the
yeah,
type of player. If you ask them LKR players, they'll all say they like playing with him. And
yeah,
that's the type of player I think you'd love to be. The one that other players say, I want to play with him.
yeah. He just goes under the radar, but he's
He
just
does.
an 8 out of 10 every week minimum.
Yeah, very much so. And
Yeah,
he can play on an edge, he can play in the middle, and he's
yeah.
as good
He
as
can,
in
yeah, he
any
is. He's a
role.
baller, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
he
he
is.
doesn't shy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So how is a derby day, mate, when you're in the cauldron?
good, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's special, and I'm really looking forward to the quarterfinals of the cup for that
that'll be some
whole
game.
FC. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it'll be jam packed. They'll be going at each other big style, and it'll just be a great occasion. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember the whole OKR final, and somebody left a note, didn't they, on the boundary of Hull. Last one out turned the lights off because the whole city just went down to Wembley. Well, the whole city
yeah,
will be going down to the Hull FC stadium this time, and
yeah,
it'll be marvellous. And it's good for the game. A
yeah,
sellout in the quarterfinals would be great for the game.
yeah. I know what BBC were unlucky with the Salford game they picked, weren't they? Really,
Yeah,
it didn't with
yeah.
Saints. It didn't do it justice, did
Well,
it? And they're in a
they're all
crappy
right with that
position.
now. Yeah,
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 no,
yeah,
that's it. And so again, mate, you've touched on that then, and I've no doubt we'll be hearing you on the day and stuff.
yeah.
How do them big games feel from being a player, a coach, an administrator to a pundit?
It's good. It's good fun. It's good. I mean,
Yeah,
I always take the commentating or the pun. I just take it as talking to my mates about rugby league,
yeah,
and it's something I love talking about. So it's something I've always found pretty easy, and it's a subject you're immersed in. So obviously you've got a vast knowledge of it. So it's pretty easy to talk about something you've a vast knowledge of and you love to
yeah,
somebody who it's like talking to your mate in pub, and you
yeah,
just do that. And obviously I want as well to sell the game as best as I can to any sort of neutral observers who might just switch on and think, oh, this looks all right. This looks interesting,
yeah,
and you want to try and sell it so that the switch on again when there's another game on as well.
yeah. So I was going to ask this later on, but since we're on about it, mate, how did that come about for you?
It came about. It was Radio 5, Dave Woods, in the first game of Super League, which was Paris and Sheffield. And they just asked me if I'd go over to Paris with them. And I was part of the commentary team. There was Dave Woods, myself, the lad called David Oates was another commentator, and the legendary Peter Fox. And
Yeah,
it was that was the first one I'd done. So his first game of Super League was the first one I'd done on Radio 5, and it just
it's
blossomed
cool
from
that though,
there.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because so that was 30 odd years ago, but it was just a great day. And I always remember Peter Fox afterwards, and I'd done the commentary, and as I say, it was the first time, and Peter was an old hand at it, and he said to me, "I'll tell you what, lad, that's done well." He says, "But just remember, I've forgotten more about rugby league than they'll ever know."
just
So
put you in your
it built
place.
me up. Then he just chopped my legs straight from under me. But that was Foxy. That was Peter Fox. So great
Oh,
fella,
I
a
love
great
that.
fella.
So when it comes to the competitions and like at this point we're at Wakey, how do you continue to punch above your weight with the budget and the resource you had at Wakey?
It was the players. There were
Yeah,
special players, uh, and there's one who I still have a massive affection for, Jason Demetriou. You
yeah,
know, if you ask Jason to lead a team, he'd lead through deed, and if you asked him to run through a wall, he'd run through a wall if he thought it was for the
yeah.
benefit
It's
of the
great
team.
to witness, JD.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
just he was an outstanding fella, and there was other people like Monty Beetham, David
yeah,
Solomona, Michael Korkidas, the March twins, who were
Yeah.
just competitors and good players, and that sort of started it running. And we had sort of 5.5 years really of punching well above our weight, and
Yeah.
getting to Challenge Cup semi-finals, 5th in the league, only home playoff game that Wakefield's had up to now. I'm sure they'll get one in the near future, but it was just absolutely fantastic. And it was a club. If I've got a glove, the club fitted me like a glove. It just
Yeah, you
felt
were just
right.
able to get on with it,
Yeah,
mate.
it
Yeah.
just felt right. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and
I
that's why
wasn't
I've
being
got.
rude then, John, sorry, but you constantly did, didn't you? Punch above your weight.
Yeah,
You
we did.
always
We did. But
overachieved.
we love that. We like
Yeah.
that. Uh,
The
we like
narrative.
that challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They all think we're no good. Well, let's prove them that we are.
Mm. How did I know you look for the narratives, mate? And it probably if you could bottle it and sell it or explain it to people, you'd be a millionaire. You wouldn't have to work. But it's like, how do you keep doing that though? I know
I
your
just
passion, your
it's
passion's one reason.
Yeah, I think it's staying energized within the game, and
Yeah,
as I say, I've loved and you realise that the tough parts as well form part of the story. So you don't look at that and think, "Oh, I wish I could have avoided that." No, you don't. You've just got to accept that it's part of. It's an
the
overused
journey.
the journey word, yeah, but it
Yeah, yeah.
is, and you've got to embrace it. So, and that's why, you know. I don't have many regrets whatsoever. Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, it's all right.
So anyway, that's by the by. Sorry about that, John. I do
No, it's all
apologise.
right. You shouldn't have regrets either, John, because it's part of who you are and it's part of
Yeah.
what your rugby story means. That's
Yes,
why
it
I,
is.
I chew your head off about it, mate.
It is.
So at Wakey then, and could you foresee the issues that were coming?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, I was there when we went into administration, and
Yeah.
it followed, towards the end of my tenure there, and that was tough. And
That's
the reason
scary, that job.
it is scary,
Yeah,
but I felt it more scary for the players and for the
yeah,
admin staff as well. People who got mortgages to pay,
exactly.
and all of a
Livelihoods.
sudden they
Yeah,
weren't getting paid.
yeah.
So that was
And does that
tough.
happen really quick? Sorry to interrupt you, because I don't think us fans understand that. Do we? Like, we think, oh, it'll be drip fed, but it is just a cut off in it. There's just
It
nothing
is,
comes.
it is, and you can see little when you look back, you can see little signs,
Yeah,
but it didn't all click together at that point. It's only when the bombs dropped, shall we say, and it's
yeah,
in administration that you think, oh, well, that's why that happened. That's why that happened. That's why we couldn't have that, and so on and so forth.
yeah.
So you can piece it together then, but it is hard, and you feel more sorry for the players and for the staff, that of mortgages to pay.
I suppose you're consumed by getting the team ready, mate. Them little signals you probably don't see because you're
Yeah,
engrossed day
exactly
to day,
right.
aren't you?
Exact,
Yeah,
but even then, you can still uh, you can still bring things together. We went over to Catalan with 18 players, and one of them were Matty Wilde making his debut, and another was Alan Murphy, who was the 18th man, who was a Bain
right.
then. And we
Yeah,
went over and we won. And it were like us against the world. And again,
yeah,
it was a great narrative that we just pulled together. And well, all that's happening. We care about each other, so we'll show the world that we care about each other by how we play. And that was a great. That's one of my proudest victories that people don't, because it's not written down as a Challenge Cup win and this, but that was one of my
it's as big
proudest
as.
victories. Yes, because
Yeah,
of that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and Alan Murphy, mate. Sorry to keep marring you, but Aaron was someone I did see playing in the park a bit like, Patty Arvan did for
Yes.
a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Willie Isa, sorry.
Yeah.
His carrying was so direct and hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I could see him moving into the middle or like the outer fringe of the middle.
Well, when we signed him, he was a winger.
Yeah,
And then we played him at full back, and he was good at that. Then we played him in centre, he was good at that. Then he went in second row, he was good at that. He could play. He could play anywhere because he did the
yeah,
same thing. He just gave his
yeah,
best, whatever role that you did. So he was
yeah.
one of those type of players you would love to have on your team every time, because you know full well, no matter what you asked him to do, he'd try his best to do it.
Yeah. The Wakey team was full of that character,
It
wasn't it?
was, yes, it was,
Yeah.
yeah. We loved Mutton Nettles, we used to like calling ourselves, you know. Let's
Yeah.
roll the sleeves up and let's get down and dirty.
Yeah. No wrong with that, mate, is there?
No, no.
So Bradford come about another massive club, mate, in and around difficulties as well. Uh, is it still difficult to say no? And why Bradford?
Well, Bradford's it's a great club, and you know, you feel you felt as if you could get them back on track, which I think because they were in League One then, so we got them
Yeah.
promotion. And in all honesty, things were going great until money problems hit again under the, you know, it wasn't Nigel Wood's tenure, it was the
Regime.
previous one,
Yeah.
yeah, which was Andrew Chalmers, and we were going really well, and I think we'd have had a great season, but they didn't pay the players' pensions. And
Right.
the agents got to know that. And because of that, we lost Elliot Minchella, Rowan Milnes, Joe Keys, Ethan Ryan, and Matty Staunton. Five
Yeah.
players there who were absolutely
Super League
central to
quality.
us. And
Yeah.
we lost them like that. And
Yeah.
we never really recovered from that in my tenure. We didn't. But I honestly feel if we'd have managed to keep them together, we'd have kicked on and we'd have been A-OK. But it absolutely sideswiped us. It really did.
Yeah. Because that's a spine, that, mate. 5 or 6 players, isn't it? It's
Oh
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
real
Well,
body
Elliot
of your team.
Minchella's he's played for England since.
Yeah.
Matty Staunton, Ethan Ryan had established Super League players.
Yeah.
You know,
Really kicked on. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were great, but that potential was there. But you know, because of the financial aspect, the agents rightly said you breached your contract, the free agents, and that's why we lost them to OKR.
Been done dirty a few times, haven't you?
Well, it's part of the
Looking for
game. It's
punishment.
part of the game. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
But as
Do
I
you know
say,
what? And
it's great now
that's
that
what I love about you. Yeah.
Bradford are they're in a good space now off the
Yeah.
field. They really are. So let's hope that they can regroup and they can,
Yeah.
you know, get themselves back into Super League because it is again
British Rugby League need Bradford,
that's
don't
a
they?
big
Yeah.
potentially a massive club with a massive following.
Yeah. No, I agree, mate. And then you done Leeds over in the Challenge Cup as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you got the freedom of Bradford.
we enjoyed that. Yeah, we enjoyed that. We did because
So is that
it,
mentality again, John? Like we've got
it
nothing to lose, go and have a
yeah,
go
it
at
was.
them,
Well,
and
again, it was. You know, Leeds are the big dogs, aren't they? And
mm,
they were having a tough time at that point. That's when David Fern had just left, and I think it was
yeah,
Richard Agar's first game, and we felt they were rocking a bit. So we felt if we turned up and played and challenged them, we'd have half a chance, and we had more than half a chance, and that was a great victory. It really was, and 11,000 folk were there that day. You know. 11,000
that's
people. Yeah,
outstanding, that, isn't it?
it was absolutely
Yeah.
sensational day. It was.
Yeah. So how is freedom of Bradford treating you all right?
It's all right. Yeah, they're good lads. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, that again, one of the nice things is I go back to clubs I've been at, and one of the nice things is you're welcomed back. And
So you should
I
be.
always feel that's, you know, you think, well, I must have been all right. And then
Yeah.
if they welcome me with check hands, look me in the eye and welcome me back. So yeah,
No, it is a true reflection of you, John. Like I said, I only pestered you on social media, and you've been a real gent, and it comes across in this like good people. Things
yeah,
come round for, don't they?
they do,
And
they do.
you paid your due to rugby league, mate. So I don't see why any door should be shut to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So you come to Witness, mate, and obviously in all our eyes, Witness is still a massive club as well.
Yes.
And why Witness, and what did you find when you got here, and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. It was. I was approached. I forget his name now. Phil.
Finney.
Yeah, yeah, Phil Finney. Yeah, Phil. I met him at the Holiday Inn in Brighouse, and he really sold me the challenge, and I enjoyed going over there, and I enjoyed working when Phil was there. But obviously, Phil left midway through my tenure, and it was like the guy who'd looked out for me and really wanted me all of a sudden had gone. So it became a little more difficult after that.
Okay.
But I enjoyed the time there, and it is a very big club, and it has
Yeah.
got great potential. It really has. So again, I would wish Widnes all the best, you know, in their quest as well. But there is a fair way to go, because obviously it's financially it's tough there as well. It's very tough there.
No, it is, mate. It is. The only thing that I struggle with is I don't live in Widnes now, but I'm from Widnes. I'm only 20 minutes down the road. But like they played Wellington in the Challenge Cup, and
Yeah,
the ticket prices was the same price as if you want to go and watch Saints compete at the top every week.
yeah, 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 yeah. You have
Like,
to
I'm not
make
asking for something for nothing,
yeah
but I think you've missed a shot there, haven't
concession.
you?
Yeah, you've got to
Yeah,
realise where you are and what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
And that for the tenner off that ticket price, you probably feel that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And
And that's just
that would have been more useful in the long run than
yeah,
the short term financial fix.
yeah. But I'm no expert, mate. I'm not trying to sound like one. I just think they've missed a
Yeah,
small
yeah,
trick with what Alan is creating it with this
yeah,
at the minute. It'd
yeah.
have been, but the 7,000 there, that's outstanding effort, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And we
But
give
I
them a
agree
game
with you.
as well, which is
I think they
important.
could have sold it out. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I do myself, mate. So Wales, and you've got the stash on now and
yeah,
the longevity, mate, and play. Your squads tend to be in and around the same squad. So I've just got a couple of questions for that. Is you've obviously built something people want to be a part of.
yeah,
So initially, I imagine it may have been difficult initially, but it's probably got a bit easier because of what you've
yeah.
made. So, is there ever a quarter with the job that you try and pick Welsh-based players at all?
No, we just, in all honesty,
It's right. It's probably right if they're there, you should, isn't it? Even if they don't play, you just exploit them to that environment.
but there's more Welsh-born players who play for Wales than has ever played for Scotland or Ireland,
Yeah,
and I'm pretty proud of that. So
yeah,
I always feel we are a true Welsh team, but we're also a true Welsh team. I think punch above our weight again, and
yeah,
I take that back. When we played Tonga in the World Cup, they had Fafita on the bench, an absolute star of the NRL, and I totted up all the salaries that my players were on, and I said, "You fellas are on half of what he's on." I said, "So let's get out there and play and make them realise that when we come together, we're as good as half of these as well." And it was that was the little narrative we used there. Fafita's wage against every wage that the Welsh players had, and he'd come out doublers. But he
yeah.
wouldn't have bet
Because
us on his own.
no, that's it, isn't it, mate?
Yeah,
That's it. But
yeah.
it's obviously somewhere people lads want to go and play,
Yes, they
regardless of
do.
how long the season's
Yeah,
been.
yeah,
And I think that's a credit to you what you've
yeah,
created there,
yeah,
John.
yeah. Well, we tried to create an environment that they enjoy being part of. That's it.
Yeah,
We try to make it as professional as possible within obviously certain constraints, but we try to make it as enjoyable as possible as well, so that year in year out they'll turn up and give the best, and that's all you can ask.
no, I do. It just I think that shines in where you see you playing the youth system now, growing and growing and growing,
Yes,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Do you have input in that, mate? Are you allowed license to do that? Or
It's not. I mean, I'm obviously aware of it, but Clive Griffiths
yeah,
is really he's pushing that a
right.
great deal indeed. And there's like Origin games between East Wales and West Wales, and there's
Yeah,
more Welsh kids playing than there's ever been playing before. So
brilliant.
it's looking good, and the people
Yeah,
running the governing body in Wales, the smart people, but again, they do it under the constraints that they've got basically very little funding, which is
yeah,
a massive shame, because they should have better funding. And if they did have better funding, we'd have more resources to develop players even more,
grow it.
a
Yeah,
wider base and a better
yeah.
pinnacle, if that were the case.
Just a quick one. Do you think because the Union game suffered in there that this is probably a really good time for the rugby league side to grow?
Yeah, I don't take any
And
joy
I'm
though
not
in
trying to say we're going to play on their
no.
suffering. Do you know what I mean? I'm not
No,
saying
but
that, but
no, I don't take any joy of them suffering though, because I always I grew up when you watch Gareth Edwards and Phil
yeah,
Bennett and company play rugby union, and they used to cane England regularly, didn't they? And
yeah,
you just think, and that reflected. I always feel that rugby union in Wales is similar to rugby league in England. It's good, solid, working class stock people who play it, and I've always had that little affinity with the Welsh rugby union, the Welsh people, and that's one of the reasons I so enjoy doing the job that I'm doing with Wales.
no, I love that. So, John, it's that time of the chat where I've got a few daft questions for you, mate.
Okay.
I've pestered you enough. So, either as a player or a coach, mate, did you have any pre-match superstitions?
Not really. It was just it was right boot before left boot. That was
Yeah.
the main one, and I used to get a bit paranoid about that. Yeah,
Did you?
and I had my timings down to an absolute the second. So
Right.
it had to be that, or else I got quite stressed. So
Okay. No, that's fair enough,
it
mate.
was basically the whole build up to the game from the day, and I continue that into the coach as well. Because when I was at Wakefield, I always, and my missus loved it because I always did ironing on morning of a game. So she used to leave the pile of
Baskets
ironing
like
out
ram.
there. Yeah, there were a massive pile of ironing, but it just allowed me to wind down. So I just like routine. So I think that's the
The way
most.
you're bragging that you can iron, I can't.
And I can iron, yeah, and I'm good at ironing as well. Yes, the creases in my shirts are absolutely spot on. I'll
They're
tell
on
you.
it.
Yeah.
So, the toughest player you've coached with and against?
Uh, oh, that's a good one. The toughest player with is probably Adrian Morley.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's sensei. But the mentally toughest player is Andy Farrell.
Yeah.
Andy Farrell's sensational. He really was, and I really enjoyed coaching Andy Farrell, both with England and at Wigan, and I think what he's achieving now, it does not surprise me one iota. You just knew he was going to be a great coach, and I'm surprised he went to rugby union to do it, but you knew he was going to be a great coach.
Yeah. No, that's understandable the way he played the game and that.
Yeah.
And just at that time, mate, sorry, we were how blessed were we in that back row as well, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah, and Jamie
With
Peacock as
Scully and
well.
stuff.
Jamie
Yeah,
Peacock.
Jamie. Yeah,
So there's probably Jamie and Moz are vying.
yeah.
They were
Oh,
tough hombres. Yeah,
yeah, but both absolute gents, aren't they?
yeah, very
But
much.
like
Yeah,
such in figure like big characters and figures, you're a bit
yeah,
like, but they're
yeah,
actually they're
yeah,
proper nice fellas.
yeah.
Your favourite away ground, mate? And do you like the modern ones now or
No, no,
no
I like grounds that have got character.
traditional?
The one things I love about the Wakefield ground, it's been modernised, but it's at Bellevue,
Yeah,
which is the spiritual home of Wakefield Rugby League. And I'm pleased that Cas are redeveloping Wheldon Road. They'd call it the jungle. I call it Wheldon Road. I'm pleased they're redeveloping Wheldon Road because that's the spiritual home. So I feel very much that if you can develop where your spirit and your heart is, so you should. So
so
my
you get
favourite
like the
ground on that.
Wilderspoons and the Boulevards and places like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, the bowl when you played there, you knew you were gonna get walloped. You might win
yeah,
game, but you're gonna get
yeah.
walloped. Yeah, yeah,
And you can also definitely hear what Bob in the front row is saying
yeah,
about you, can't you?
yeah. So I mean, the traditional. I love the traditional grounds.
Yeah.
So
If you could go back and tell a younger John something, what would it be and why?
I wouldn't want to tell him all because I want him to learn it as I had to.
I love that. Yeah.
Because I think it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to go through what I've been through, and I wouldn't want to sort of influence a young John. I just want him to embrace what's happening and live in the moment.
I love that, mate. And after some of these big wins and not even finals, but like Catalan's away, mate, say you've had a few beers and the microphone ends up in Mr. K's hands. What's he giving us?
It's a whole lot of love from Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
or some bad manners.
Wow,
So,
like
bit
it.
of a scar man, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Still go watch them every Christmas. Home
Yeah.
first picture home. Bad manners. It's as good a night out as you'll have, I'll tell you. Keep your eye open.
Right.
December the 28th. Keep
Yeah.
your eye open.